Oh, yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Low Key, Low Down. This is the show where we're talking about Loki season 2 on Disney Plus. I am Vactor. He is Shaw. Shaw, how you doing?
I'm good. Doing real good. Sporting my new shirt. Finally came in the mail.
Perfect.
Like weeks and weeks later. Wanted to have it for the Loki episodes week over week, but you know it's Lego and Loki. It's a double L, and we like it.
That's perfect, Shaw, and that fits your personality perfectly.
I
So
think
I'm really glad.
Yeah.
That's excellent. We are here to talk about episode 5 of season 2, science/fiction. So let's get right into it. And Shaw's got a Spider-Man mug.
Marveled out.
Shaw, what did you think about science/fiction?
Oh, another banger. Another banger. Yeah. Wow. The whole episode, start to finish, gripping very much so. The pace was excellent. Everything was interesting. What was really great about this episode is we left off in such a place where we had no idea what was going to happen next. And I purposely avoided they had a trailer that debuted within this past week since episode 4 debuted, which I thought, honestly, stupid. They should never have done that. Completely unnecessary, because it spoiled aspects of this episode. Granted, I avoided it, but I did see like fractions of a frame, and that was enough for me to be like, oh, well, come on. Like, Marvel, you don't need you ended an episode on episode 4 making it look like the entire multiverse had basically imploded on itself, and then you show in the trailer that that's not exactly the case. I mean, yes, but not exactly. So, but overall, I'm glad I avoided that trailer because the episode was dynamite start to finish. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I also loved it. And you know what else I loved was the marketing team for Marvel. The one that put out the trailer bad, the one that did their Instagram account good, because on the Loki Instagram, the official Instagram account for Loki, they erased all of their entries
Yes, I
after
saw
that,
that.
and they put just a miss minutes like access denied, access denied. So I thought that was
You didn't say the magic word.
I thought that was amazing. Last time I checked, it was still just that one entry, so it seemed like everything had been erased. But once we got into this episode, I was full on enjoying it, Shoff. I was like, "What is going to happen next?" My biggest question, maybe you can answer this, Shoff.
Okay.
Do we know why Loki originally started time slipping? Was it because of killing He Who Remains?
That's a great question. Actually, I don't know that they fully answered that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna go back and rewatch
That's where
the first season.
started. It started. Yeah, it started
'Cause
as
it
a
was
result of him. Well, he didn't personally do it, but
right.
he got kicked back into what I think was the past. Like Sylvie kicked him through a thing, and I think that sent him in the past. And maybe the aspect of him being in the past, which within, I guess, the TVA's timeless element, recognized that that is not where he was supposed to be. He started a time slip, or there's something else going on. Maybe another entity that was sort of like creating that ability in him. I don't know, but definitely I feel like this next episode will hopefully, I mean, it's the season finale, right? Next week is the season finale, so we need to wrap this up. But yeah, I don't think it's really been fully understood why he's time slipping. That's a good question.
Because as we see at the end of this episode, he becomes the key to all of this. And the whole episode, we're setting up, okay, we think he's going to be building this team, and then that's what's going to get, that's what's going to solve the problem and get everything back to that point. But at the very end, although what they did was kind of set up our expectations, just like they did in the last episode when Victor Timely went out there and we were like, oh, this is going to be the plan that saves everything. In this one, everybody was setting up. He got all the pieces in place, all the pins were in place, and then everything started to spaghetti again. And it was like, well, now what? Like, what are we gonna do? And it ended up being Loki. The key to solving it was inside all along, Shaw. So I'm like,
Right.
where did that ability come from? What makes him special? Because we saw even Sylvie spaghettifies, but Loki seems to be the only one that is safe, or he has the ability to stop these things. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
like you said, hopefully in the next episode we get some information on that. I really want to know.
Let's nail down the verb we're going to use for when people get uh fruit by the footed, or what's the nerd ropes or whatever it
Shredded.
is,
Yeah.
they get shredded. Are
Yeah.
we going to call it spaghettified or spaghettied? I like spaghettied
Ooh.
personally. He
Okay.
got
Yeah.
spaghettied.
Let's go with that one, Shuff. I
Okay,
think
cool.
this was a great. There was a lot of
Yeah,
spaghetti in this
there was a
episode.
lot. There was enough spaghetti to fill an Olive Garden for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. This episode made me feel Italian, Shop. There was so much spaghetti and everything. And shout out to the visual effects team because the spaghetti looks great in all these episodes. And also, I think this show overall looks great. I don't think I said this to you, Shop. I think I was talking about this on another podcast. I think this show is the closest thing in the MCU to Andor. And what I mean by that is it looks visually stunning. Like it looks like it's shot on film.
Yeah.
It looks like they have a like whoever the DP is, whoever the cinematographer is, like it just looks like fantastic. Like it just looks great every
Yeah.
episode. And this one was no exception. When I was watching, I was like, man, this looks great. I love the way this looks.
So this is more of a gripe at Disney Plus, but they don't really. When you go into their settings, because you want to like choose like the highest resolution, like they have one that is like you can get 4K, UHD type quality, but it's really dependent on like your internet signal versus just having like a service maybe you could pay a little bit more for to guarantee that you'd have the higher resolution. I was encountering that like I was plugged in Ethernet. I'm using my my nice MacBook, like it's got like really high resolution, but whenever I watch Disney Plus, I noticed that it's a little bit grainy. Like it's just not the most crisp of images, and I don't know why, and it's a little bit annoying, but obviously most people watch it on their TV and stuff like that. I'm usually watching on my laptop because I'm at my desk, and I'm also like working on like capturing screenshots and stuff, so I'm like trying to do all of that at the same time. But for me, like it wasn't the crispest, but I know what you mean. It definitely looks polished. It's a very polished show, and the visual effects for when you're describing like a universe undoing itself and getting spaghettied, like it's such a cool effect, such a cool look. And when it first started happening, very like one-off things, like Sylvie had her McDonald's bag and she set it on her truck, and then it just like like disappeared, and then same thing happened with the whiskey, and from there on it just started to get worse and worse and worse. I was like, oh no, what is happening? So,
Yeah.
but really, 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 really cool. I definitely did not expect that everyone would sort of get transported to various branch timelines. Is the understanding, did you understand it to be that they all moved to the same timeline, but at different points in time? Like a branch timeline, but the same one at different points in time, or that it was different branch timelines at different points in time? Question.
I was thinking the way that they designate is branched timeline, but they don't specifically say, okay, branch timeline number 1, branch
Right.
timeline number 75, which that would have, that would help, but I'm thinking because they just designated branched timeline, it's the same one,
Okay.
but at different points, different years, and then different cities.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that's what they're going for, but at the same time, it's I really hope they give us some type of explanation in this last episode for these going to this branch timeline, because I had we talked about it last week with the Victor Timely thing. What was the point of bringing him if he was just going to be spaghettied? So I want there to be a reason why that branch timeline is special and we're focusing on it. And all of these characters, there's a reason we're pulling them out. I want them to come back and be like, "Oh yeah, that the branch timeline was what we needed to get to this point." That's what I would like them to give us some type of explanation for that, but I
Yeah.
don't know if they will. So
Well,
we'll see.
from what I understood by the end of the episode, since we're getting, deep into spoilers and stuff, Loki is able to time slip back to the point before, at least, I mean, my guess is it's before Victor Timely goes and tries to save the day.
That's what I was thinking. Yes.
So then we'll get more Victor Timely back
We.
again, which is great.
Yes. Yes.
But we don't know yet for sure. I would just assume so, because if it's any point after that, that seems like too late a point in time to fix the problem, right? So,
Right.
but I have a question for you, Vactor, because this has been popping up on TikTok ever since this episode debuted. Everyone is talking about it. It's the big hot goss. Is that by Loki recognizing that he can write the story, that he can they talk a lot about that, like in science fiction it's what do they say, or in science it's the what and the
How?
the how,
Or
or
no?
I can't remember the exact
Right.
way they said it, and and then in fiction it's the, I don't know, whatever it is, but he says, Loki at the end is like, it's the who. It's like,
Yes.
he's like, it's been a power that I have, I can rewrite the story. And then everybody on TikTok is blowing up saying, oh, Loki's going to be the god of stories. He's going to become the god of stories, which is a story arc in Loki comic books. But I'm not super familiar with Loki comic book arcs, especially this god of stories one. And I wondered if you had any insight into that and what that might mean. Because
Yeah. So
here's my guess before you go into it. My prediction for what will be the outcome for Loki's story is that he will become the equivalent of He Who Remains, looking over and sort of
ooh.
like the essence of Loki being like a god, and he wants to be or his goal originally was to be the ruler of something, right? I think like his purpose, his destiny, his glorious purpose, if you will, is to rule, but not like in like a with an iron fist type thing, but with like to be the one in charge of the TVA and to be the one at the end of time. And maybe we won't see him again until, say, like Secret Wars or something like that. But like I think like his purpose is then to help ensure that the timeline is secured and safe.
I
So
would love to see that. I wonder, and we talked about this before, the connection to the movies. Is that gonna be like if he comes on the throne, then where does that put Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars?
right.
I wonder, that would be very cool to see that, but I don't think they will, just because it seems like Marvel is putting a lot of weight on Kang, and so keeping He Who Remains, and then also like the opening recap that they showed on this one, it was He Who Remains saying, "I am the one who laid the path for
Yeah.
everything that led you here. I'm the one who did that." So I'm thinking that everything that they're doing in this show is still just going to lead back to what happened at the end of the first season, and you can't change that. It's like one of those fixed points in
Yeah,
time,
that's a
like
good
they
point.
just
I like
can't
that.
move that. But I would love to see that God of Stories, because that was a more modern, a relatively modern Loki story that it went in the early 2000s, and it saw Loki just kind of reinventing himself and also moving towards that anti-hero, which he is kind of in this series. So in the comics, he had always been a villain, even going back to the 60s. He was the reason why the Avengers came together originally, which also echoed in the movie. But he enchanted the Hulk, and then all the other Avengers had to stop the Hulk. So they had to kind of team up to stop Loki, really.
Mm.
So he was like the big bad of that first Avengers story. So ever since then, that was like in the 60s, he's always just been a straight up villain. There's been no black or white to him. It's like, I mean, sorry, no shades of gray. It was all black and white. He's just straight up villain. More recently, he's been more of an anti-hero, and fans have been latching on to Loki a lot more, and we see it even in this show. So I like that God of Stories, that transition that he's becoming like an anti-hero. So that would be cool to see it in the show, but I don't think we will. That's I think more of a fan thing,
Okay.
fan speculation.
Yeah, it's gaining a lot of traction on there, but theory culture is a big sell on these short form content type things. So it's always interesting to look at, but not necessarily something to dig too hard into.
Yes.
Who is your favorite? What was your favorite reveal of like when they all got sent off to various points in the branch timeline? What was your favorite? I guess character change or revelation?
Yeah. Well, the show is kind of biased because they don't give everyone equal screen time.
No.
The It seemed Obi was the one that
Yeah.
got the most screen time, and he was also the most important role in the story. So I loved Ke Huy Quan, just this different version of Obi, where he was like, I'm a theoretical physicist, just until I can become a writer, just until my career as a writer takes off. That made me laugh. So I loved every interaction they had with him, and then Mobius, just more of Owen Wilson being Owen Wilson. That made me just like, oh man, I wish we could spend more time with
He
him.
was always selling, like he was
Yeah,
always on, like a
yeah.
true salesman, like always looking for the opportunity to create like a solution. Oh, and there's also financing available.
And then, Eugene Cordero's character, which every time I hear him, I just think Rutherford on Lower Decks,
Yeah.
but, his, like, con man, like, his, Alcatraz prisoner character, I thought it was funny. He was always trying to steal stuff. Um, Really, the B-15, her as a doctor, got the least amount of screen time, so we didn't really get to see too much of her, like, her differences,
Yeah.
just that, "Oh, she's a doctor, okay."
Well, I think that that sort of plays into her empathetic sense abilities. It's like she was so bothered by learning that she had a life on the timeline, and other people do too, and she was really feeling for the lives of others. And I think that from a storytelling perspective, like what kind of backstory are you going to give her? What kind of person was she on the timeline? Probably somebody who cared for people in a big way. So I think like putting her in the medical field is a great idea, and especially for as a pediatrician, or at least a pediatric doctor is what it seemed like. That also kind of made sense. I don't feel like she got enough to do, and I also feel like you said, Eugene Cordero, Casey slash what was he going by, Frank in this
Oh, yeah.
timeline, being a prisoner of Alcatraz in the '60s. And then you've got B-15 in 2012 as a pediatrician. You've got Mobius in Cleveland 2022 as a salesman of like jet skis and stuff, which we finally got to see that. Did you take it to be that these are the real roles that they had on the timeline before they were scooped up by He Who Remains to fill the various TVA roles?
I don't
Like it
think
didn't seem
so.
random. It felt like this is what they were beforehand.
Yeah. See, to me, I'm thinking this is just one of the, thousands of variations that they had, just like Brad was an actor on that one timeline. I felt like these are just certain versions, but also, well, I guess when they say, I was thinking about the times, like why were some in the 60s and why were some in 2000? And then in the TVA, they're all the same age at that point where they were plucked off the timeline. But I guess I'm thinking that if there's only one specifically, like if he's always a jet ski salesman, um, then it would be boring to me to be like, oh yeah, in the multiverse, you have all these options, and then we're just going to limit them to these ones over and over again. But yeah, I could take it either way. I could see that, okay, yeah, this is the one that he who remains was destined to choose all of them, which I also would love to see a TVA backstory episode where of how it was created, how everyone got there. I don't think we're ever going to get that, but
No.
I really love the world building that they've done in this show, and the universe of the TVA and the time gods and all of those things where he who remains face was covered up. Like, what was that story? I'm getting like lost vibes of. I really want to know, what's the polar bear? Why is there a polar bear here? But I don't think we're ever going to get that. So, all of those things throughout the episode, I was thinking about as well, alongside. Man, how are Loki and Sylvie going to get out of this? Um, do you what was the significance of the song that Loki or Sylvie listened to, that he was like, this will be give you a good mood, and then like her eyes lit up
Yeah,
as
you're
soon
right.
as she heard it. I was like, is there something I'm missing here? Is there something special
I
about
know the
this?
band's name was Velvet Underground, but I don't
Yes.
remember the name of the song. I'd have to do some digging on that, but I don't know the significance. But I do love vinyl. Quick story: I used to be a
Yeah.
collector of vinyl, and I think you know
Oh.
that. Um, but when we moved from Colorado to Washington, the moving company lost the box that had every single one of my records in it, and I had a pretty large collection and lots of like limited edition like Mondo vinyl that you can't get again, like if they were only pressing a certain time, a certain amount, a certain time. They lost it all. Never got it, never found
Dang.
it. And the insurance that we had for it didn't cover the value. So I never got any money back to
Dang.
purchase them again. And I have since that point, that was over a year ago, I have not purchased a single record because I'm still so like bothered
Ah.
by it, and the thought of buying vinyl, like it's almost like it's like a PTSD or something. Like I don't want to like to minimize it to that, but like it feels like that, where as soon if I like look at a record, I'm immediately transported back to the feeling of losing that collection. And I'm a collector, as you can see behind me. Like I take good care of my stuff. I always do. And the fact that somebody else didn't take care of my stuff irritates me so much. So
Dang.
I even had like a 6 vinyl set from Mondo of the Infinity War Endgame, all the
Ooh.
instrumental music, and it was all of the
Oh.
vinyl was each vinyl disc was an Infinity Stone, so they were all like the colors. Oh my gosh, I'm so mad. So, anyways, it's beside the point.
Dang, that sucks, Shuff. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Definitely, if there's some favorite vinyl that you have, leave it in comments down below. Let us know. We're always looking for new recommendations. But I thought, just overall, this episode was, um, I think you could classify this as a filler episode, because at the end of this episode, we're in the place that we were at right before the ending of the last episode. Now, Loki goes on a journey of discovering how to control his time slipping, but in the story overall, we're right back to where we started. But I think this is the best type of a filler episode. Like, this was fantastic from start to finish. I never felt bored throughout. I just was supremely entertained the entire time. So this was, like Shaw said at the very beginning of this episode, another banger, and I'm very much looking forward to the last episode, which that very much could be the series finale. Like, I haven't heard anything about a series, a season 3 so far. So very much could be that, Shaw.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that the not that I know how it's going to end, but I have heard rumors that this show is absolutely setting up the threat of Kang,
Hmm.
which to me doesn't bode well for our people, that they're going to be able to fix the problem, because ultimately Kang is coming, and and he means to conquer. So we have that aspect of things, which is going to be tough. But I also saw a lot. There's a lot of news articles going around right now, sort of confirming some rumors that were going around back when Jonathan Majors was more heavily in the news related to the potential allegations that they were thinking about pivoting to moving away from Kang and moving towards Doctor Doom as like the baddie for say Secret Wars or whatever, which wouldn't be too far off from comic book lore as well either. So right. I mean, either way, it would be good. I would prefer to see Kang fully realized, and but I don't hate the idea of a really solid Doctor Doom either. So
yes, man, they really like. They could do both. They could have their cake and eat it too. Have Kang be the bad for Kang Dynasty and have Doctor Doom be the bad for Secret Wars. Like they could do either way. I was actually surprised when they kind of announced both at the same time because I was like, man, that's kind of you're taking away the emphasis on one, like the impact of having one at a time. Having them both, it's like, oh, you're now our attention is diverted a little bit. So we'll see what happens coming up in the future, Shaw. And we will also see what happens next week for the final episode of season 2 of Loki. Please join us here again in the Vactor-Verse. Want to let everybody know, if you haven't noticed, we have supers now. We have super thanks, super chat, super all that stuff in the comments down below. There's if you press the little super like button, you can give us a little donation if you'd be so kind. We can divert the funds back into the podcast. It'll just be an Ouroboros snake eating its tail here in the Vactor-Verse. But we are always thankful to you. And if you'd be so kind, leave us a comment down below. We can always discuss things that you're thinking about in this Loki season 2. What are your thoughts so far? What are your thoughts on the upcoming finale that's going to happen? You have any theories, like Shaw was saying a little bit earlier, the God of Stories and all of those things? Let us know. We want to know. Shaw and I are always curious to know what you're thinking. But once again, Shaw, thank you very much for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
As always. And Shaw, do you have a closing? I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a closing for this one?
Yeah. I low-key love that Loki wants me to have an apple pie, and you should have an apple pie too.
Yeah.